Hi, everyone. We are back again, Babula and I, to talk to you about the next lunar cycle. But before we get into that, I just wanted to talk a little bit about, a little bit about astrology, because I've had a couple of friends tell me that they love watching what we do in the series, but they are struggling a little bit to get their head around because they're not. They don't know a lot about astrology, but they'd like to know more about it for sure. So, and I guess I could sort of talk a little bit about that because, I'm certainly not at the level of what Babula is with her understanding of astrology. So I'm sort of coming more to it from that new person approach, shall we say. So, but I've learned a lot over the last 2.5 years doing this series with Babula, and I'm be forever grateful for that, Babula, because you're a wonderful teacher and you have a lot of insight.
Thanks, Sheryl.
But I just wanted to talk. In the background of everything that we're talking about through these lunar cycles, through the new moon cycle and full moon cycles, we're always that's the background of that is that we're always moving into the new age of Aquarius, and astrologers don't particularly agree when that began or even if it started, but there are certainly signs. Once you get to know, if you read up about what Aquarius relates to, you can certainly see that we're very close to it, if not in fact in it. And actually moving from one sign to another, which we are now, moving from the age of Pisces to the age of Aquarius, can take a couple of 100 years to transition from one age to another. So we're heading towards or deeper into the age of Aquarius, where the Aquarian ideals of humanitarianism, knowledge, reason, or the power of the mind to think, understand, and form judgments logically, which I have to say, Babula, we're not seeing a lot of that at the moment, are we?
No, we're not.
We're seeing a lot of the shadow side of Aquarius, which is the perversion of that, doing things perversely. Would you agree?
Yes, indeed. And I think it's also the ending of the age of Pisces. There's a lot of emotional energy that's being cleaned up as well, like the veils of illusion and fantasy.
Yeah.
That's being cleared out. So it's,
yeah. So, the age of Aquarius is also about innovation. And, we're seeing a lot of that with, again, perverse ideas about power, creating electricity and all those sort of things. But innovation for sure, and people who work towards greater goals. So, knowing how astrology works to the degree that I do now, I know that those things will eventually come to fruition as we move into the age of Aquarius, even if we're not around to see it. So we've all sort of got a part to play in that as well. And even though these last few years have been a nightmare for a lot of people, I certainly sense, and I think you do too, Babula, that you can sense that energy that wants to rise, that embodies all those ideals.
Definitely.
Yeah. But until then, we're being put through the ringer and stretched on the cosmic rack, as you have coined, which I really love that term, to reshape us into being able to step up and embody those ideals. So that's the story of astrology. It's the story of the birth of a human being and the different stages of our development depicted in a wheel, as you see in the astrology charts, which is overlaid with the mythology of ancient gods and goddesses represented by planets and asteroids and constellations. And I'm saying this because these are the things that I've learned while doing the series with Babula. So the birth chart tells the story of a life lived, and it's reflected in the existence of those gods and goddesses and all the situations that can happen in our mortal life before we physically die. So the astrology chart of a person is a narrative of their life laid out in a map form. And if you know how to read that map, like Babula certainly does, You can see where you've been and know to a degree where you're going, even if you don't know the fine details, but you get the overall energetic understanding of what's coming. So that's what we're doing here, each new moon and full moon, giving some insights about what we can read from the map to make people aware so they can prepare, or we can steel ourselves if it's a difficult energy that's coming, or let loose and party if the energy is positive and supportive. And Babula, I was thinking, when you think of the word prepare, it actually means to pare down. And with astrology, if you have the understanding of astrology, the knowledge of it, this can help you reduce the astrological effects by paring down their impact through their knowledge. So you can sort of, if it's a difficult situation, you can steel yourself towards it, or you can know that there's a beginning, middle, and end to it. So you can, I think that people, if they know things, they can endure anything, because it's a lack of knowledge that actually frightens them. So that's my spiel, my introductory
Fantastic.
spiel. For people who sort of, from my perspective as a, even though I've been looking at astrology for many, many years,
Yes.
but the overall larger understanding of what I've come to know through doing this series with Babula.
Fantastic, Sheryl. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. And yeah, it is a big topic, and it's a lifelong study, as all students and professionals know. It's like many areas of life, it's an open door. It's an endless space of learning and discovery. But at a basic level, we're looking at all the planets as they move around our sun, and the Earth is moving around the sun, and the following, tracking, you call it the star trails, and I love that. Tracking the movement and location of the planets at any given time. And it gives us a lot of information, just a lot. I mean, it's thousands of years old, these studies of astrology, and all cultures have looked to the skies and the stars and the movements of the stars and planets to understand more about life on Earth. And there are smaller cycles. We come together every 2 weeks to track the moon cycle, because she's moving really quickly, every new moon, every full moon. But as we move out from the sun, the planets have bigger circles or bigger orbits to cover. So from our perspective, they're moving much more slowly. So they're all moving at different rates and take different amounts of time to move any particular distance. So it's a constantly moving thing.
Yeah.
And just like we are, if we think of just what happens in our life in a day, internally and externally, a lot happens in a day, moment to moment, hour by hour. That's all reflected by the movement, in the cosmos and in the solar system. Everything's moving and shifting and changing. So
it's a bit like a garden, isn't it? Because,
yes.
It grows, it changes, it ebbs and flows in relation to the weather and how much it's fed and nurtured and all sorts of things, really.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I've heard astrologers refer to, the current movement of planets as the weather, the astrological weather. And it is, what's the weather like today out there, but what's it also like in the astrology chart and in my chart, or in the chart of just everybody. Yeah. And actually everything's impacted by the movement of those planets, including the weather.
Yes, absolutely.
Everything is impacted.
Yeah.
Because everything is connected. Everything.
And now, is there a particular term used for the astrology of weather? I think there is, isn't there? Astrometeorology, or
yes, it can be that. Like there's astro mapping, that's where you're looking at the astrology of places and locations. There's all different branches of astrology, but there are people who specialize in tracking the movement of the planets and the moon a lot with weather. And I know there's a guy in New Zealand. I think his name was Ken Ring. I'm not sure if he's still alive. Brilliant work at forecasting and predicting long-term weather patterns and so on. I'm not sure how he's doing now with all the weather interference that's going on, but still, even with that, you can see these weather trends and so on being reflected in the movement of the planets.
Yeah.
Everything's impact.
Yeah.
Health, everything. Yeah.
There's so many branches, like you say, and I'm particularly interested in astrocartography.
Me too.
Where people, I'd say, they move from one country to another and how that changes their astrology. Right. Yeah.
So when we travel for a holiday or business or relocate to migrate to another country, all these things, that astrocartography, astromapping, it's fantastic. And medical astrology and so on and so on. And, political astrology, the astrology of history, world events, mundane astrology, all these different areas. It's reflected in everything on
fascinating
experience on the planet. Yeah. So in this hour, we do our best to sort of give a bit of a glimpse and an understanding of what things are looking like now and how they're shaping up for the next couple of weeks. But I'm also a big picture girl, and I love to look at these bigger cycles like the Aquarian age, and we could now go into a half-hour conversation about that, which I would love, but it's not what we're doing here. Yeah. But there's a lot to say about that, about that shift into the Aquarian age. And just one little snippet I do want to throw in. My personal view is that when the planet Uranus was discovered in 1781, if my memory serves me correctly, that to me was when the Aquarian energy began to crack open. It didn't birth fully the Aquarian age yet, but that's when the Aquarian energy started to kind of make its presence felt. The energy started to come in. It was the big, very, very, very beginning of that energy moving, because that planet Uranus rules the sign of Aquarius. And it's been just gradually sort of unfolding. And I think next year, with Pluto going into Aquarius, feels like we're teetering and tottering right on the edge, right on the edge of it now. Big conversation on that one.
Yes, well, we must have that. Okay, well, I guess we better come down to planet Earth now.
That's right. And the moon, and what's happening now.
What's happening over the next 2 weeks, because this is called astrology now. So would you like to kick it off?
Okay, I will. There's a lot happening. I've mentioned this in the last couple of conversations we've had, but October was always going to be a big, strong month. There's lots of big, strong things happening, within this period of just, and going into November as well. November's always strong because it's the Scorpio month. So October, November, as we sort of move towards the end of the year, is it's a strong time. So the full moon will be on the 10th, but the day before, actually now, Pluto, our friend Pluto, who's been retrograde for about 5 months, Pluto, the lord of the underworld, the ruler of Scorpio, turns direct. So he's been moving apparently backwards in the sky. It looks like that from here. And he's now stationary, which means he's finishing that retrograde motion, that apparent backwards motion. He's come to a stop. So his energy is very strong at the moment. And on the 9th, the day before the full moon, he will slowly begin to turn, but it'll take him some days and weeks to actually get some momentum going, and off he'll go. So that's really potent always when these slow moving outer planets change direction. And Pluto has an incredible power and intensity to it. And around those days of that change of motion, it can feel like things can feel heavy, deep, like, oh, do I have to keep going? Can't I just go to bed now? And it can feel quite strong, but Pluto's always about death and rebirth and transformation. And he puts our nose right in it.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
Drags us down into the underworld to meet and process something that needs to be processed. And then as it turns and begins to gather momentum and move forward again, that there'll be a feeling that we'll notice in the next few weeks of, okay, so something will feel like it's clearing, because he's got a lot to do with purging this planet, just like Scorpio does, you know, purging, releasing, endings. So the full moon then is on the 10th. So we're in the Libra lunation cycle. The full moon will be in Aries opposite the Libran sun. And it's a pretty interesting one. And I might just hold this up. So there's the moon in Aries, exactly opposite the sun in Libra. The sun is conjunct Venus and the full moon is conjunct Chiron. There's quite a lot going on. So the full moon is always when the sun and the moon are exactly opposite in the sky. So full brightness. When it's a full moon, there is an illumination. The light is really strong. And so every month she shines her light at full moon in a particular sign. So she's shining her light in Aries, the sign of the warrior, the sign of courage, of action, of boldly taking the initiative and taking a new step forward.
Is it the sign of the hero too?
Yes, the hero's journey that the wonderful, amazing Joseph Campbell talks so much about. Absolutely. And it's, you know, it's heroic. You know, we're all going through so much, and there's a kind of deep exhaustion in the collective, like how much longer to get through this. And that Aries energy is the warrior who's able to like hang in there. And times we need to rest. So the sun's in Libra. That is a good time to sort of take a break when we can, take some time out. And then that Aries moon. So the moon will be in Aries for 2.5 days around that full moon. So that Aries energy gives us a bit of a kickstart of energy, a sense of, okay, I can move now.
Yeah.
It's conjunct Chiron, the wounded healer.
Yeah.
That's really significant. So for those who know their chart and like to sort of look at where this is, the full moon will be at 16 degrees of Aries, right on my Jupiter in my chart, and conjunct Chiron at 14. So, you know, Chiron's been in Aries for some years now, from 2018 through to 2027 for 9 years. So there's lots of issues around Chiron in Aries in relation to illness, which Chiron has a lot to do with illness and wounding and so on, is anything that ends in itis, inflammation, infection, burning fevers. There's been that in my household. I've escaped it, thank you, but grandchildren, daughter, like high fever. And this is in the field, you know, so this is an Aries energy, and this full moon, some people might be finding that they're feeling really feverish and hot. You can also be feeling emotionally and energetically hot, like fired up. Yeah. So the warrior energy of Aries with this emphasis on Chiron can be like the wounded warrior, and what do we need to do to heal, to recover, to be able to function? Like, what's wounded here around that Aries energy? What am I not stepping into? What's going on with my courage levels? Am I making choices out of fear, or am I feeling courageous and ready to keep going?
Yeah, I guess you could be asking, it's about your personal identity too, isn't it? So you'd be saying to yourself, who am I really? You know,
that's right.
What do I stand for? Those sort of things, you know.
Exactly. And it is the sign of the individual and that process of individuation.
Yeah.
Instead of being one of the herd and one of the masses, which on one level we all are, we're all in this collective together, but within that, and how do I be true to my unique identity?
Yeah.
you know, and live that fully. And that takes courage and guts. Let's face it, it does. In this world that's trying to create some kind of homogenous, murky blend.
Yeah, okay.
Various shades of grey. That's right. That's right.
That's
We shall
another
say no more.
conversation.
I know there's a whole other conversation. But yeah, so Aries it's almost like I will fight for my right to be myself.
Mm.
It's a sign of the warrior. Sometimes we need to fight, and to do that we get fired up. Yeah.
Mm.
I mean, it's also, you know, it can also highlight wars and conflicts and so on, of course.
Yeah.
But what's interesting, it's opposite, of course, the sun, as the full moon always is, which is in Libra, ruled by Venus.
Yeah.
And Venus is conjunct the sun.
Yes. Yeah.
So there's all this Venusian Libran energy on one hand. And on the other polarity here, we've got the full moon brightly shining in Aries conjunct Chiron. So not only is Chiron illness and wounding, it's also healing, because he was this great, wise, brilliant healer. So it's, you know, what's the medicine here that we need to... So we're looking at this tremendous polarity and balance between the Libran urge for peace and harmony and justice and peace, and the Aries need to individuate. So Libra's relationship, Aries individual. And I mean, I'm seeing that in myself, like certain relationships. It's been going on for a little while now, but even just very recently, I'm feeling it. Certain relationships seem to be fading away, and others are strengthening. Yeah, as we come more into our individuality and individuation.
Yeah. Yeah. But I guess there's a bit of a contradiction, or not a contradiction, well, it is, or I guess you could say it that way, but this push-pull within a person who's that's being triggered because it's me and we, you know, me and we, or wanting to be an individual, but also not wanting to lose, wanting to be within the that energetic cloud of the family, say, for example. Yeah. And I could see how someone in a family situation, you know, might be wanting to do their own thing, but at the same time wanting to, and I know someone in this situation, an associate, who is also sort of kowtowing to what the family wants. So they have the family, you know, yes, I'll do that. This is me.
Yeah.
I'll fit in your box, that sort of thing.
Exactly. And you raised a good point, because one of the challenges in Libra, and every sign has their challenge, is a tendency to, I want to be in this relationship so much, I'll do anything to keep the peace. I'll keep trying to please you at the expense of the Aries individuality.
Yeah.
And some of us, like myself, actually have planets in opposition in their own birth chart between Aries and Libra. So I live with that, you know, that duality of the Aries individuation, and I need to do my own thing my way, and also to be able to grow and maintain healthy relationships.
Yeah.
Without, it's not one at the expense of the other. And that's what the polarity signs are always about. You know, so those oppositions in our chart, which we encounter every month at a full moon, we're encountering a very strong opposition between the sun and the moon. How are we finding ways to embrace and integrate and balance those two polarities in a healthy way, and not either or?
Yeah, you answered a question I was going to ask, so I won't bother. But I was just wondering, you know, how do you build the bridge between the two?
Yeah.
And which one is more powerful? You know, the moon in Aries or the...
Well, they both are, to me, equally. The sun and the moon hold equal power to me in different ways. So the sun is very much about individuation and the self. The moon is, and we can say the sun is like spirit and our path in life. You know, whatever sun sign, this is your path in this lifetime. You're growing your identity and sense of spirit. The moon is more to do with soul and our inner emotional, psychic soul need and responses. And they have to be particularly at full moon, you know, how do they find a balance and an integration? And in some birth charts, they're not in harmony. In other charts, they are in harmony, kind of in an agreement. And others, is it? So how do we do it? Well, it's a lifelong learning, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, to learn that. And of course, all these things show up in their relationship. If we're living one side of a polarity, what do? We bring in someone else to do the other side.
Yes. Yeah.
Like if I only do my Aries, then I need Libran people around me, or, you know, when in fact we have to do both ourselves, really.
Yeah.
But we get a glimpse of this story every full moon.
Yeah. So there's always a compromise.
Yeah.
If you want both,
Yeah.
but it's what you compromise that's important.
Yeah, that's right. And what is most important to you? And this full moon is so significant because there's an important planet on each end of the full moon, you know, on the moon and on the sun. So and the fact that Venus is there on the sun, opposite Chiron and the full moon, in her own sign, there's a whole lot which would take another hour to go through. Venus is coming to do something really significant and important. She's going to make what we call, and I've run a whole day workshop on this, so it's quite a big topic.
Yes, and I've been there and it was good.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's really interesting.
Yes.
Going to make what we call a Venus star point when she makes this conjunction with the sun later in the month on the 23rd. So she's very close to the sun at the full moon. There's only a few degrees difference. But she will make the exact conjunction just before the next new moon at 29 degrees of Libra. And I just want to touch on this. The reason that's especially significant is two reasons. One is she's in her own sign. 29 degrees is always a very potent degree of any sign. And it's the first time there's been a Venus star point in Libra for a long, long time, because that particular point has been in Scorpio for the last 250 years. She's going to begin a whole new phase for many, many years in Libra, her own sign. So that's going to begin to highlight relationship. And I think that's a really important theme on planet Earth right now.
Yeah.
Human relationships are really being challenged big time.
Yeah.
Old ones are falling away, being discarded, being broken, and new ones are forming. And how we're going to navigate that in the years to come.
Yeah, we certainly need to. I can see how that's going to happen, because right now, like you and I are part of a couple of little tribes.
That's right.
So, and then eventually those tribes will merge with other tribes and have bigger tribes. And you have these, because Aquarius is all about groups, you know, groups of people.
Exactly.
Yeah, community.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I can see, you have to have relationship and community.
That's right. And relationship requires a certain effort and openness of heart and a willingness to, you know, put the time in. That's right. And it's like there are certain people we have a resonance with. A lot of it's got to do simply with resonance. You know, the heart resonates with certain people's energies and qualities and how they think and feel, and just energetically how they feel to us, you know. Yeah, so it's a big story. And so this full moon is important with that Aries full moon and the opposite, the Venus Sun conjunction. So a couple of more things about the full moon. This full moon, and over the next few weeks, it's actually during this full moon period, and for a few weeks, there's a wonderful grand trine going on in the air signs. So I'll just quickly describe that. We've got Venus and the Sun in Libra, making a trine to Mars in Gemini. And Mars is starting to slow down now because he's going to turn retrograde at the end of the month. And both of those are making a trine to Saturn in Aquarius. So Venus and the Sun, Mars in Gemini, Saturn in Aquarius, making this big triangle in the sky. It's an air grand trine. So the element of air is all about the mind, ideas, thinking, communication, and human relationships. And grand trines, it's like all these planets are in this harmonious flow with each other. So it can be very, very beneficial time for people to form relationships and tribes and communities, and to communicate and write and clarify our thinking, and to, you know, communicate with people in a way that's healthy, and so on and so on. So that's helpful. Okay, on the 11th, Mercury, which has been through one hell of a retrograde phase.
Yeah.
Because it made all these oppositions to Neptune and squaring Mars. It's been a doozy, to say the least. And everyone experiences them differently. But for me, it was a doozy. And I'm hearing that feedback from many people. Very strong. He's turned direct, and he'll move into Libra. That's a shift that will begin to feel easier.
So I might get some clarity after all.
Yes. And I've just noticed over the years that, you know, Mercury's got a lot to do with health, a lot. And that's another whole workshop in itself. It's got a lot to do with health. And so, yeah, in, you know, retrograding in Virgo, that's had an impact. So, and then on the 12th, Mars, the warrior planet, the ruler of Aries and the old ruler of Scorpio, an energy of tremendous dynamic energy, will make the first of 3 squares to Neptune. And we'll talk more about that, you know, over the coming weeks and months. But I just wanted to bring that in because that's important. As Mercury begins to slow down, he's in Gemini now for 7 months, an unusually long time, because he's going to come into a 10-week retrograde period. During this whole 7-month period, he's going to make 3 squares to Neptune, which again isn't particularly easy because they're very different energies.
Yeah.
Mars is all action, go, 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 you know, the personal will. I know what I'm doing. I'll do my thing. Energy, the warrior spirit. In Gemini, the mind, communication, tremendous stimulation of the mental plane.
Yeah.
Fantastic for educators, teachers, writers, but it can also be quite overwhelming because there's just so much mental activity.
Yeah.
You know, and the square to Neptune, the first of 3, around this full moon, you know, during this period and exact on the 12th, can sort of create a bit of confusion. Like Mars is very direct.
Yeah.
Just acts and goes, bang, clear, straightforward. Squaring Neptune in Pisces.
Yeah.
You know, it can sort of diffuse that energy, confuse that energy. The normal high energy of Mars can feel a bit drained. I think how that will be just feeling drained from and overwhelmed by all this mental activity.
Yeah. I just got this image of like throwing a spear into water.
Right.
Like, you know, nothing.
Yeah, or a spear
vibration.
With the flame on the end.
Yes. Yeah. Out. Oh dear.
So I think that's going to manifest in many ways, and we'll keep talking about it because we'll be experiencing it. But it can feel like, you know, tiredness, waking up really early because the brain's stimulated and you're not getting enough sleep and just so much to do and, you know, busy and all of that, and just overwhelmed from the sheer input and the avalanche of information that's coming our way.
Yeah.
So one thing I would suggest is breathing. Gemini is the lungs and the breath. It's an air sign. Like, let's get real literal. I love to use astrology at the most basic literal level because I think it's really helpful. We need fresh air. We need to breathe. Breathe our way through this. You know, get our lungs healthy.
Yeah.
Because that's a challenging issue at the moment too. Lots of lung issues going on.
Yeah.
Lung health will be really important. And just one more thing and we'll move on. For writers, this can be amazing for the writer's muse.
Mm.
You know, if you journal, just let it pour. Literally, just let it flow through you. Can be fantastic for, you know, intuition. Okay. Then we come into a couple of days around the 18th, 19th, 20th, when the Sun-Venus conjunction still conjunct each other, moving together through the degrees of Libra, will make a trine to Mars in Gemini. That trine will become very close, and then a square to Pluto. So again, we've got these themes around relationship and communication in relationship. It can get a bit intense with the Pluto energy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just a very strong energy around human relationships. Then we come to the 23rd, which is the Venus-Sun conjunction, the Venus star point, which has an impact on us, you know, for some time to come.
Yeah.
And on the same day as the star point, Saturn turns direct. It's always nice when Saturn turns direct, because it feels like, because remember, Pluto will have turned direct just before the full moon. And these are the two heavy hitters of the planetary system. Saturn and Pluto are heavy energies.
Yeah, very
So
much.
Pluto will be direct, and then Saturn will turn direct, and that's going to be quite helpful. Well, not straight away. It takes a bit of time for that energy to sort of move on and clear. Yeah, but it can feel, for that day or two or three, it can feel a little bit heavy. We might feel a bit stuck, but then it will get moving. Yeah. On the 23rd is quite strong, because on the same day, Venus and the Sun, which are at the star point in the morning at 29 degrees, by the evening, they've both moved into Scorpio. So welcome to Scorpio time.
Oh, and welcome to Halloween coming up.
Halloween.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes.
So this is on the 23rd. And so when the Sun goes into Scorpio for those 4 weeks, this year Venus will also be in Scorpio. Mercury will follow suit on the 30th, the end of the month. So we come into this Scorpio time of the year, which is always, in my experience, really intense, as if we needed any more intensity. It's just an intense period following on from quite a strong, intense October.
Yeah.
So, you know, that Scorpio time is always a time of purging, of shedding, where I often experience as being, you know, periods where I feel quite tired and need more sleep. It can feel a bit like we're wading through treacle sometimes. You know, it's deep. It feels heavy because it's so deep.
For me, it feels like a good time to dive into the paranormal.
Yes, absolutely.
Which I do anyway, but I might lay it on thick in that month.
Absolutely, because Scorpio is always about what's hidden.
Yes.
What's behind the veil, what's secret, and bringing it into the light. And so it takes us into deep, deep territory. It's a fantastic time to go into personal therapy and healing, because suddenly the energy's there to take you just a few layers deeper than you might normally go, and hit some places that are ready to be revealed and healed and transformed.
True, yeah.
And I often recommend that to clients when they're going through Pluto transits. Amazing time to get support from therapists and healers. Really can be really powerful. So yeah, that's great. It's the sign of the detective, you know?
Oh, yes.
It gets his...
Well, I've got Mars in Scorpio. I think you have too, don't you?
That's right. We are
Researcher.
natural detectives.
Yeah, absolutely. Digging deep. Always dig deep into everything.
Everything. Got to get to the bottom of this.
Absolutely.
I'm not interested in any superficial explanations here, thank you. That's right. What's really going on?
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's right. So for those who already have quite a bit of Scorpio in them, this is like just, okay, here we go. Scorpio energy is upon us. And it is the phoenix rising from the ashes. It is the snake shedding its skin.
Yeah.
The caterpillar, the butterfly emerging from the cocoon, but while the caterpillar's in the cocoon, it's turning to goo. Things can feel like they've turned to mush. But it's a disintegration and a death and a dying before the emergence and the rebirth.
Yeah.
So, it can also be a time of year every year when more souls seem to leave the planet.
Yeah.
Yep. Because it's the sign of death, literally and as a metaphor.
Yeah, and you do get a run of people dying off, a generational thing perhaps, but sometimes not. They're younger people, dying as well as people of a generation.
That's right.
And suddenly you have this wave of celebrities that you've known your whole life, known about your whole life, and just poof, they're gone.
That's right. And suddenly you notice you seem to be going to more funerals than you normally do. Things like that are going on. It's very Scorpio.
Yeah.
It's the time.
Yeah.
And we can get a deeper understanding of death. I mean, death's those of us many of us have had parents die and we've experienced death and so on. It's a very potent time, and it can be very profoundly healing and transforming in many ways.
Yeah, very transformative, I think.
Yeah, very much. And that brings us to the new moon. So, from this full moon to the Scorpio new moon, there's a lot packed in there.
Yes.
A lot. But there's more, because the new moon on the 25th is at 2 degrees of Scorpio conjunct Venus, because Venus is still traveling with the sun. So that Venus is exactly at 2 degrees on the new moon, which we'll talk about more next time. But of course, as many of you will be aware, this new moon is an eclipse. It's a solar eclipse. So it's like you turn the volume up another 50 notches.
It's not a full eclipse, though, is it? It's partial eclipse.
It's a partial. It's a
partial solar eclipse, I think.
Let me just double check. I've got it. I hope you can all still see me.
But still, it's got the energy of it.
Oh God, yes. Is that the one there? Yeah, this is a partial, and the lunar eclipse 2 weeks later will be a total. But still, eclipses are very strong energy. They're catalysts for change.
Yeah.
Whatever happens on and around an eclipse.
Yeah.
And really, we can say we're in eclipse season now. We're entering that energy now.
Yeah.
And often bring about changes that are permanent, like things shift. And I've noticed over the years that around eclipses, you get things like the deaths of, key people in the world, and also key people often get born on eclipses, who have a big life to live in the future.
Yeah.
And they're specifically potent for individuals for whom the eclipse hits something directly in their chart. So I don't have anything around 2 degrees of Scorpio. But, there are some years where an eclipse will hit something in your chart. So for you personally, it'll be particularly strong. But just in the collective field, it's very, very potent. And of course, it's in Scorpio.
Yes. Well, there's endings and there's beginnings. There's always endings and beginnings.
Always.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's
Things
life.
just get a bit intensified, and that's right.
Yeah.
And so just quickly to sort of take us through to the end of the month, on the 28th, Jupiter retrograding through Aries will slip back into Pisces, but it only gets back to 28.5 degrees of Pisces before it turns again and goes into Aries. So he's in Pisces now until about the 21st of December on the solstice. And then Mercury goes into Scorpio, as I said, on the 30th. But on the 30th, Mars turns retrograde at 25 degrees of Gemini. So there's a lot going on.
Yeah.
And then, of course, through November, there'll be more to talk about.
Well, this is where astrology can help you endure.
Yes.
You understand some of what's going on and some of what's coming your way, and then when it gets here, you go, "Oh my God, what is this?" But you'll know that there is an end to it as well.
Exactly. And I've just been through a passage like that where there's, in my family, a lot of very, very, very challenging issue with some sickness that came upon the family, and little grandchildren so sick, and my daughter then got sick, and it's like day by day, it's just everything else, forget everything else. This is what we're doing. And you literally just have to get through it.
Yes.
And it brings you present.
Yeah.
You have to be present. You have to let go of everything else and be completely, totally present to now. So, and I think that's an amazing thing on a spiritual level. Like, it's a training in being present to what is.
It smacks of 2020.
Yes.
We all just had to let it all go. We can't go to work. We can't do this.
That's right.
We can't do that. We can't go out of the house. We can't go to the shop. Let it all go.
That's right. And in that, though, I find it very interesting is that often very beneficial things come out of this.
Yeah.
And I was aware of that. I was paying attention. And something like what I've just been through, it actually deepens bonds. And I've experienced that. The bonds were already strong, but it's like I experienced like our relationships have shifted in an even deeper, more beautiful way. All in this cocoon together, going through this very challenging time.
Yeah.
We just existed in this bubble together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it simplifies your life because you are suddenly faced with what you really value. Because initially we have like, oh my God, I can't do this, I can't access that, etc., or whatever. You couldn't go out of the house probably much. But then you go, hey, that's okay. This brings me.
And you discover you can do it.
Yeah. But you just go, hey, it's okay to let those things go, which makes me think how many things, I mean, if I sometimes have a very active imagination, but I have these visions where, I see people walking around, including myself, who've got these huge burdens that they're trailing behind. And I think, just snip, snip, snip. Don't even need it.
Yeah.
These are other people's expectations or your own, or unnecessary items or those sorts of things. Just let it go.
Exactly. And so these strong times, particularly with this Pluto Scorpio eclipse energy, exactly, like we get paired back to what's basic and most fundamental and most important to us, and you realize what's not important.
Yeah.
That's priorities.
Oh no, I was going to say it's very important to me to go out in the backyard every day and look at my tomatoes growing.
I'm the same. And my lettuce, I'm the same. And get some sun every day when sun is available to us every day. I check my growing vegetables.
Yes, me too. All the babies.
Oh, good. Back to something so basic. That's right.
Yeah, and that's exactly what you're talking about, paring away. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Oh, life lessons, hey? Whew.
Yes, always. Never stops, does it, till our last breath?
No. Well, thank you, Babula. That's been very enjoyable listening to all that information. I've been absorbing into every pore of my body, my mind. So, and everyone, if you enjoyed this episode, please remember to like it. And if you want to hear more, subscribe, and remember to tap the bell so you get notifications that a new episode's been posted. And if you feel even more inclined, share it with your friends.
Fabulous.
Yes. So until next time, in another 2 weeks, we will be back with that new moon cycle. So until then, friends, stay safe and enjoy life.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.